Hello, welcome to Movies I Love with yours truly, Nomfanelo Malloy. So, in honor of the film's 25th anniversary, I will be discussing Miss Congeniality, which is a 2000 action comedy film. It is directed by Donald Petrie, who has directed films such as Richie Rich and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. The film stars Sandra Bullock, Benjamin Bratt, and Michael Caine. So it was quite fun to revisit this movie because it's been quite some time, and I find as a comedy for the most part it still holds up. Sandra Bullock, has great comedic timing as the lead in the movie, along to with her co-stars such as Benjamin Bratt, Michael Caine, Candice Bergen, and William Shatner as examples. I love how, like, with the reveals, the comedic reveals, they're quite hilarious. For example, when Sandra Bullock's character Gracie Hart gets the call, um, she because we think that she's heading for a case or something like that, but then as we see her like walk inside the store where there's a bunch of people, it's all filled up. It shows that she's at Starbucks, has to take orders for her co-workers. That was hilarious, and I bet the people in the room were frustrated. I would say though, like, I think they could have blurred the Starbucks line when they showed the shot of Gracie showing her badge towards the people. But other than that, like, it's quite effective, I would say, with that moment. Another moment I would say is when she is at the bar after going through a rough day. She asked the bartender for a pint, and we think it's beer, but it turns out it's a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Seeing that, I'm just wondering, like, do they actually serve ice cream at a bar? I mean, I've never been to a bar myself, but I just find that is hilarious. So I like with this movie with Gracie Hart. She's quite tough as nails. When we're introduced to her character, she is able to stand up for the kid that's bullied at school. And it's funny that when the bullied kid pokes fun at her because she's a girl, of course, Gracie gets offended and punches the guy in the face. This is hilarious. And to add that, it's funny with the transition because it shows that Gracie as a kid and as an adult have similar hairstyles and wear the same glasses, which is insane. I love Gracie, like, she's, able to do action essentially. She does a lot of that. Because clearly, like, she has the best intentions, even though at times she doesn't follow orders. So an example is when they're having like the sting inside the Russian restaurant. Now, obviously, like, she got queasy when the guy was choking on food, and and she wanted to look away and like try to intervene, but her boss, played by Ernie Hudson, says nope, you got to wait. But she couldn't hold it any longer. But yeah, that was interesting with that scene. Loved the scene when because she was supposed to do it during the pageant, some sort of talent where she's playing music with wine glasses. I don't know what the proper term would be for that. But then some of the contestants ended up drinking it backstage, and she had to figure out what to do. And then she decided she's going to do a self defense demonstration. That was a fun moment with her and Matthew there on stage. And I bet that like helped the character's chances to make it to second place with that. So that was cool, because I bet if it came out today and that happened, it would be a viral moment. I would say, along to like when earlier in Texas, she thought a guy was going to pull up a gun, and then she tackled him, and turned out he was looking for a cigarette. That's another viral moment right there. And yeah, with Gracie, she she has anger issues, I would say, because we see, for example, when she's at her apartment after having a rough night after the sting at the restaurant, she's like banging a lot of stuff, like where she bangs a microwave, and at one point had to use a wooden spoon to keep it closed. And she keeps stumbling, she keeps tripping, and she does that throughout the movie, I guess, to show that she is a klutz, I suppose. And then she's like doing kickboxing at her apartment while the Salt and Pepper song "None of Your Business" is in the background. So yeah, even though like she has all that, and in ways she's kind of like an outsider, I think, given because she's one of the very few female agents at FBI, essentially. Clearly, when she's in the pageant world, it's not something that she's a fan of, because we saw when she was on the plane, she kept poking fun of the footage that she had to watch, which made Victor, played by Michael Caine, and Matthew concerned in terms of her being be able to pull it off as a contestant for the pageant. But she's able to do it at the end, though. And I would say, yeah, the makeover scene, that whole sequence was quite fun to watch. I would say one of my favorite moments is her when she's walking in slow motion, when she's outside of the hangar. That's cool. In terms of the pageant, it's interesting that Kathy mentioned that it's more of a scholarship program, which I never knew myself, because I've never really watched beauty pageants, but I guess that's important to highlight, because I guess people think of beauty pageants as what they're shown on TV. I'm sure like things has changed since then, but yeah, I find that's quite fascinating to learn that, oh, it's a scholarship program. It's more about like philanthropy and all that stuff. So I find that's quite cool to learn there. And and it's funny that when Gracie says yeah, Victor tells her yes. He says it's always yes, never yeah. And I'll be honest, so I'm guilty of saying yeah like all the time. Like I'm sure you could see like in my videos, I kept saying yeah a lot. I'm trying to limit that, but I don't want to say yeah. But I finished the upcoming season for my podcast, We Discovered Movies, and I think I kept saying yeah a lot often, which I'm like, but it is what it is. But yeah, just try to limit that. So, as Victor always says, it's always yes, never yeah. And it's funny that when Kathy turns out to be the person behind the citizen letters, it's funny that she says yeah, and then Gracie corrects her to say yes, which shows how much Gracie has changed as a character. So, with Gracie as an agent, she doesn't get much sleep, it seems like, especially when she's going undercover as Gracie Lou Freebush, which, by the way, that's a hilarious name right there with that one. and, and I guess it's kind of cheeky too, for obvious reasons. At one point, because she talks to Cheryl, who visits her room, and once Cheryl leaves, she tries to get sleep, but then gets called by Matthew to do rehearsal with Victor. And it's funny that Victor gives Gracie a hard time by not eating any sweets or any foods that has a lot of fat in it. At one point, she tries to hide it, but he always catches it. He knows. And then at one point, there was like a dog that sniffed her, and then she had to remove the donut from her, which is hilarious. And but I think at one point she got frustrated. She had to pull the gun on Victor so she could eat her food. I mean, I don't blame her, but I imagine though, as a contestant, you have to keep a strict regimen essentially. But that's funny. At one point, when they had these like interview type questions, the contestants were asked, like, what's the one issue you care about, something like that, and the contestants say world peace. Gracie at one point says harsher restrictions for parole violators, and then beats later she says and world peace, which is hilarious there. And what else? Yeah, I find it holds up as a comedy, even though there's aspects of it that has not aged well. I find as a comedy for me, it's still entertaining. And I would say like the music choices here in this movie are solid. So we have obviously like with Salt and Pepper with None of Your Business when Gracie is at her apartment. But then also too there's Mustang Sally during her transformation reveal. And what else? The Tom Jones song, "She's a Lady," because that plays in the movie. That's quite cool. And then also too, when the contestants have to do this dance in the Statue of Liberty outfits, the song "One in a Million" plays. I forgot the name of the artist, but yeah, I find that song's kind of catchy with "One in a Million," quite catchy. And of course, too, the theme song for the pageant. She's beauty and she's grace. She's Miss United States. And it's funny that with that theme was played during the finale when Cheryl is crowned the winner. And then it's funny that like Gracie is trying to remove the crown because it had the bomb. But it's funny with how that went down, and luckily no one got hurt with that one. But it's funny that with that music is played while all the chaos is happening on stage there. There was a cool shot, I would say, when Kathy Stan are talking to Gracie and Matthew. She stands up at one point, and there's the crown on top of her, but it's from like the photo in the background. I find that was quite fascinating to, I guess, to highlight that she was a pageant queen or former Miss United States, and it shows what that she cares about the crown essentially, because like when she and her son Frank are looking at testing the crown that had the bomb and all that stuff, she kept wearing the crown because she can't get over those days. So there's that. And hmm. And it's funny that after all the chaos during the finale, the producer says, "Great show, everybody." I mean, it will definitely be memorable for sure though, because if it came out today and that happened, yeah, like that will be all over social media essentially. And I think that's it in terms of the positive. I would say, yeah, like for the most part, it still holds up as a comedy. I would say it's a great vehicle for Sandra Bullock in terms of the genre. And I think, yeah, the cast did a great job with their performances there. And in terms of critiques that I had, so yeah, some aspects did not age well. Like with Frank, for example, he's a creep in this movie, where he kept like googling, not googling, ogling, and trying to flirt with the other contestants, and they were not having it. And then Victor tells Matthew at one point that apparently Frank had a rap sheet, and is known for that behavior because he has seen a lot of what has go down behind the scenes, which is quite fascinating. And it's funny that with Kathy always has to tell him to tuck in his shirt. I guess she can't overlook that because of course she's his mother, and she's all about perfectionism, is essentially like trying making yourself look presentable. Essentially, you could argue with some of the humor is very 2000s, like with the way that you could say the female characters are objectified by the men in terms of how they talk about the women essentially. So there is that, but really outside of that, it's quite the enjoyable movie, I would say. Now, I want to briefly talk about the sequel, Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Dangerous, which came out, I believe, in 2004. And I have not watched that movie in years, but from what I remember, it was not a great movie. And it's clearly for me an example of why not everything is made to be a sequel or a franchise, especially like with today, with we're in the land of all IP franchises and all that stuff. Yeah, with the sequel, that's an example of why we shouldn't have sequels. It was just terrible. I would say the positive thing for that movie is Sandra Bullock and Regina King together as partners. I found they were quite fun with their relationship in the movie, but really outside of that, I could care less about that one. So that's pretty much it what I had to say for this movie, Miss Congeniality. I would love to know what are your thoughts on this movie. Do you have any favorite moments, any favorite scenes? Or also too, what you think about the sequel for that one. So if you want to support me, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/Malloy, where you could donate and look at exclusive posts there. Also, too, I do have a community tab on my YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, feel free to leave comments there as long as it's under community guidelines. And if you want to follow me on social media, my links are in the description. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you on the next one.